Let me see how long I want this video to be. This one is titled Half Truths. Yes, the title, Half Truths, in which the mother has spoken on. Asia Degree's mom. But before we get into that, I would love to say shouts out to the podcast movement. Tell them I got the email. And my reply back to that is retail bell. They'll know what I'm talking about. Yes, podcast movement. To know someone is to say. Even in being gentle in it. And yet not all the time. That's a play on words. But anyways, love to the podcast movement. All right, so half truths. Am I saying that right? When I say truths. Notice how I say that? Truths. It's almost got a lisp involved. Even I have issues with pronunciation. Or is it enunciation? How you speak for words individually. So, half truths with the S at the end. Okay. In the realm of, let me see. Anytime a child goes missing and a missing child is involved, they oftentimes leave the parents behind, right? Some by choice and others by not. There are in fact runaway children that leave their children behind, and sometimes that is by choice, and yet this situation is not. I don't feel and sense that it's not. I don't feel and sense that it is, I'm sorry. So, in me saying that, to say be a missing person and have your parents say left behind, and say if it's through abduction such as a kidnapping or anything in that form, is to know you're gone, and so the individuals which are left behind are in fact now considered public figures, as in the parents. Yes, they are. The parents, in a sense, have been thrown into celebrityhood without them wanting to be thrown there. Because for missing children to stand as missing child is to also to place the parents there as well, whether they want to be involved or not in the discovery or not, as in a search and find, right? Or even in the situation altogether, the matter situation in which it stands altogether, the parents automatically become celebrities in all of this, is what I'm trying to say. So, and me saying this, and the reason why they become celebrities in this, the parents, is because, once again, once you throw something out in the public and it hits airways, mass media, TV screens, and all that other stuff, and showing that my child is missing, is for the eyes to be completely focused on you, the adult, the parent. Yes, it does. And so to have millions of eyes or thousands of eyes, depending on how much the parent will allow the public to be there, as in seeing them being involved in this process of wanting their children to come home, as well as placing themselves, the adult, the parent, on TV shows to show and make it known all around TV globes itself that involve TV. So that's why I say that. The parent putting themselves there to show on a national level as well as global level, my child has gone missing. Can you help find me? That's why it has those billboards and everything else, even that says about bringing the child home. Locating and bringing me home. That's what the billboards are oftentimes about, even in the photographs that you see on TVs. So, and with me saying that type of portrayal, as in the matter of blasting a face like that constantly and portraying it on TV shows and elsewhere, that in itself represents celebrityhood. Why wouldn't it not? You're seeing it there right before your eyes constantly. And we know that type of thing, the portrayal is on a level, in a sense, of almost celebrity. Because to take over any TV screen, take over any billboard, take over any radio station, take over any cell phone in the form of Amber Alert. I don't even think that back then around that time, and yet it's still out today, which the mother can in fact use today. That in itself stands, even the Amber Alert taking over your cell phone beeping to let you know another child has been missing or whatever. All that is still in the realm of celebrity. As in the eyes are wide awake opening. Something is there, yet in fact not there, and yet to want something to be seen on blast, loud, played is in fact celebrityhood, right? And so under the microscope of that, in fact, plays out public scrutiny in relation to the parents when their child goes missing. Because oftentimes when children go missing in the first place, a lot of times fingers point back to them. Because remember, based on statistics, it's been widely known that most abductions are committed by family, and more so the parents, in the first place. You can actually do a Google search on that about children abductions, and it says somewhere around let me see, I think that was 40%, or could be a little bit higher, possibly near 50-60%, that the majority of those abductions of children are in fact made and conducted by the parents themselves. Yes, it is. And so if we know that the statistics and the numbers is that high, even in the realm of, say, a father not living in the house with a child and abducting that child away from the mother because they was in petty disagreements from the beginning, or say a mother abducting her child and the father has full custody, that type of stuff goes down. It's at play at work every day. And so to know that that is how high the number stands is to in fact possibly be involved in public scrutiny, whether you want to be or you don't want to be. Yes, parents of missing children. That type of thing, search and find you, as in come and find you when you're not looking for it, as even sometimes knocking at your door. Yes, it does. That's the truth. And so, because remember, you're putting your child's life out there on global platforms and everything else for it to be seen. So to be seen is to be recognized, is to be spoken of, as in a comment, by people of various positions in which you don't even know. Because if you tell somebody to help find my child, it's to want them to in fact speak and stand and sit somewhere, even in the grocery store, standing talking about it. That's just human nature. And so once again, to do all of that is to in fact find that sort of information even in the blogosphere, as in on blog pages, websites, blog pages, however you put it, Facebook, Twitter, wherever you choose to put that type of information and comment in relation to a child that has gone missing. Because once again, knowing that the percentages is so high, and family members, more so parents at the top of the list, are usually the first ones who abduct their children, is to say this very situation could have in fact played a part in even that. As in you're doing something with your child or been involved in the situation with, say, somebody else, family member in that situation happening, yet you were the sole part of it. Even not saying custody because that's not there, but in the realm of the father situations, father, stepfather, whoever, sometimes people wanting custody of children and then somebody taking them away, you in fact still play a part of that, because even the fight goes down in that secretly sometimes with people. So if a parent was to, say, accidentally kill their child in the house and yet not want that secret to be out, people are going to speak on that very thing, as in question that very thing, which is why I myself even questioned in one of my first videos. Yes, I did. Because to know abduction stands that high, and it a lot of times revolve around the family members, parents first, not strangers, parents first, is the question. And so the parent, when I say all this, I said, okay, so the mother, I think she was in fact not mad by me, but mad in a sense on the whole realm of just public people, period, speaking, I guess, on that situation, and them not knowing the complete truth. As in what she said out of her mouth half-truths. Like a half-truth, a truth that's there, but it's not all the way there. So it's just like 50-50, right? But only 50% is there and possibly 50% is gone. And yet we don't know what the other 50% is. Because once again, to not never say what it is to not never know, which is why you run into this sort of problem in the first place. Because anytime a child go missing is to start to explain so other people can sit and examine you to see, well, where's the rest of the picture? And if you provide them with a picture, then they won't never need to have to ask, is what I'm trying to say. For a mother to get on national TV and tell the child's story in which she hasn't, right, completely, because to say there's half truths coming out of many of our mouth, being the public, is to say there's more being there involved in which the mother and the father and even the brother have not spoken on. And so for a mother to try to say possibly shut the public down and saying that there are half truths is to say she's holding on to something. She has to be. I said, why would a mother state everyone is stating half truth in relation to Asia's disappearance if she had nothing at all to do with it? Again, why would a mother state everyone is stating half truth pertaining to that situation? Yes, in relation to Asia's disappearance, if she had nothing at all to do with it. To have something to do with it is to know how it went down, as in on the ground, as in putting away something for it to never be found. That rhymes some, but it makes sense a little bit, right? And that's not in fact the point. But to take something there is to take it there completely, as even in the question, or even in a statement of me saying only a person who was there while the crime or disappearance of Asia was happening, if they were there, they would have known precisely what happened enough to tell you what is the truth or even the half truth. Does that make sense? You want me to read it again? I said only a person who was there while the crime or say disappearance of Asia was happening, while it was happening, only that person would have known precisely what happened enough to tell you what is the truth or even the half truth. So the individual, wherever this took place in relation to Asia disappearance and whatever went down as in played out that night, only the person that was possibly there physically enough to see it as they examine it right before their eyes as it played out all in action and magnified, only a person that was there while the crime was going on involving this child will be able to know the in fact truth. Should I get quiet or should I just I don't know. You, the viewer, tell me what I should do after I just said what I said. Because if you're not involved in something, then you can't really state what a half truth is. If you're not involved in something, and I'm going to repeat that multiple times because somebody needs to see this, maybe even that adult themselves, getting mad over public scrutiny revolving around them in the realm of the public, asking where was that person's whereabouts, even that night, as in the mother, the father, or even the brother. That is to say, if you were not involved in something, then how could you have known what took place in the realm of what is a truth and what is a half truth? Someone who was not there as a crime was going down and Asia being abducted would not even be able to know those sort of things, because remember, they were not there. You need eyes and ears to be able to hear that thing. And yet if you're there enough to say as in be a witness is to speak up and possibly tell police as in what you've seen, being a mother, a father, or even a child such as a brother. You don't keep those type of things secret and keeping secrets and holding information and only you knowing a percentage of the half truth as in the other 50% that say the police don't know about is to in fact waste their time. I'm saying this to the mother because see, nobody else is making videos about this sort of thing, and yet I'm willing to take that type of thing, because I'm bold and yet not trying to intimidate anybody. None of that. This has nothing to do with any type of picking a cat fight or any of that, because remember, that's not my child. It wasn't my child. And so I really can't even speak for that individual. But for a parent to say that there is half truths to all public opinion responding back to her of what she said on the TV or even on the news, is to say that there's something wrong there. Because even if an adult, the parent, is to know there's more truth and they know 100% of the truth because they were in fact there, as in seeing Asia being disappeared in a getaway car driving off, or even seeing her be murdered by somebody else in the house, is to speak up and say, as an eyewitness, I'm saying, because there's even witness protection in that. Yes, it is. But not only that, to not say, that poses a problem in the realm of police and FBI. Why am I saying this? Because you're not only wasting the FBI and police time if you know much more and not saying anything, you're in fact wasting the public's time as well. Because if the public care enough about your child, they're going to want to take it upon themselves, look for her. But not only that, they're going to have to question why she would have went missing in the first place. And not only that, they're going to leave a comment somewhere behind all over the internet enough to make sense of this story so that they can help in finding her. As in a resolution, a cause and effect. Some people don't look at cause and effect. To start a story, as in getting going in motion, is to keep it rolling, as in a cycle. Because see, stories don't move in a straight line. They in fact move in a circle. Like this or like this, however you put it. They still got to come back in a circle. Even life itself rolls in a life cycle span, in a circle, right? So what the mother has put out there, as in the child being missing, she in a sense can't take, as in the response coming back to her about her child, even in the realm of her whereabouts, even in the realm of her son, and even possibly the father, as in where were they that night, and where had they been if they were out all night and Asia came missing, as in a disappearance or even a possible murder. Because that sort of thing plays out too. It's alarming what I'm trying to say. You got the national missing children. You got that out there, as in communities, and trying to find, yes, exploitation children center. Yes, you got stuff like that. What is it? National Missing Center of Exploited Children. I'm on the way to almost saying it right. I got it half correct, and yet that's decent enough, right? I have to post a link or something. But you got those individuals. Let me think. Because so much is at play right here. I just feel and sense that, if a parent knows much more than what they're saying, then that's a sign that information needs to be told. As in the information is embedded there, and yet somebody won't speak on it, as in a reveal. But to not put that sort of thing out there is to once again waste everybody's time. Because everybody is trying to get involved in this case. Not everybody, because once again, to not make it known to the public is to be no awareness even in the public's eyes enough to help them get involved. Which is why I said I question the mother, why she don't want everybody knowing. But you can really waste people's time, and even in that, holding secrets. Because secrets oftentimes, as in the half truth, say 50% of 100%, if it's 50% there that the mother is keeping and yet only 50% that the public knows, then that sort of information could in fact point the police in the direction of where the crime actually stands as is. Does that make sense, or does it not? For information to not be revealed by a mother or even a father, as in it broadcasting, and yet she feels she stands corrected, as in standing correcting other individuals because of public scrutiny, is to say who is guilty. It's just a question. That's not doing any type of damage as in slapping anybody in the face or anything, because I never once said that they were guilty. I said it's a possibility that somebody could be guilty. That's what I said. That is in fact what I said. Looking from the outside in. See, anytime I put myself anywhere to try to possibly help and seek, find, even in closure or something like that, whatever played out that night, even if I try to bring that, it's a still question. Everybody wants to question, they wants to know. And yet we know that parents can oftentimes get angry, and even in that. Because they might say, why should you care? And my theme is, why not? Some parents might feel, why should you care? You didn't even know my child. You ain't even got nothing to do with this. And I'm thinking, why not? Because even public individuals pay taxes. Even in the heart of Shelby itself. So yes, they want to know. Whether many of us live there or not. People have the right to know. Right? So, and another thing why people have a right to know is, first of all, because any crime that involves a disappearance can in fact be repeated. This is a public matter is what I'm trying to say. That very thing could as well be repeated, as in another child going missing and undiscovered and unfound in that area. So for a person not to speak out and say nothing, even if they're laying next to somebody that could be a possible murderer, child molester, whoever else, to not say anything about that thing is to have it in fact be repeated. Because remember, once somebody start doing something, they don't just do it once, they do it twice a lot of times. And then after that, the fundamentals have been set, as in them just keep doing it to another victim, I'm saying. So that's why the public have the right to know. Yes, they do. And even the viewer would in fact stand with me on this issue of what I'm speaking on. The public have the right to know, as in what happened in that house, because if there's anybody living in that house, they should not be able to walk anywhere amongst us where there are kids involved. Because that sort of thing can be repeated even in the neighborhood itself, or where even that mother and father lives. Or even if they know somebody close to their family, even outside of the home, which had possibly did that, then it needs to be said as in told, and not whispered, creeping over to the side, because other children, I'm sure, are in fact living in that neighborhood or somewhere in that surrounding area. And yet to prevent that same thing happening to them is to say it, as in stop it now today, and come out and say what could have possibly happened, or could have happened, as I was going to say. So that was long drawn in itself, and yet it needed to be. Because some of the stuff that I say, some of these people out here will never take the time upon themselves and say it. No, they wouldn't, because as I said before, people are too fearful to say what comes out their mouth. And yet, once again, to live in an environment where children are being taken as and abducted, is to know playgrounds and everything else could stand around, as in a repeating process, because some unnatural nature of some individual that might in fact be sick or something, that might need to be put in jail or something. Something's not right to want to take a child at that time at night. And not only that, get rid of her, whatever would happen. And here it almost is 20 something years later. So I said, if a mother was, I'm moving into the next. If a mother was not involved in her child's murder or possible disappearance, then once again, how would she even know what is a half truth? She wasn't involved, right? Was she involved or was she not? Was the woman involved or was she not? That's still the question. She wasn't involved, right? Right? Okay. A person who was in the midst of the crime happening at that time, while the crime was being there taking place, as in playing out, yes, happening, can tell you what is a half truth. That individual can stand right in front of your face and possibly tell you or I, the viewer, what in fact the half truth is. Yes, they can, because remember, they was there. I'm thinking, how could a person explain to you some truth about a matter, or even a half truth, as in 50%, right? Slash in half 100, slashed in half would in fact represent 50% 100%. So your eyes would have, in fact, had to be in the same room, and not only that, in the same environment. If, say, someone was being abducted, as in killed, just enough to stand there and tell people of the public that they don't know what they're talking about. But we, the public, in fact, do know what we're talking about. As in, we're using our brain, as in logic, reasoning skills, that to be a part of something is to know something, in fact, was there, as in you, the person who could have, in fact, have been involved in that very thing, as in the crime. Along with a possible lunatic that maybe you possibly fear and yet don't want to say. Who knows? But something about that is not right. Because see, an innocent individual that don't know any of this type of whatever, the game that has been played with a young child going missing like that, is not going to take upon themselves to come out anywhere and say, you know what, the public, all you guys are speaking half truths about what has happened to my child, as in the disappearance in my home life. You guys don't know what you're talking about because you're in the public, as in out there, and not here in the four walls of my house. Even some of us are the public and see into that. I'm saying, like, the statement, rewinding back to the half truth, is how we got here in the first place. Because see, if you're not guilty and you're not involved in the process, then you will leave a matter as it stands without stating that everyone is claiming to say a half truth. Innocent individuals don't do that sort of thing. They just let everything play out as they watch. They might get on social media, might get pissed off because they're getting tired of whatever. Then that stuff I can understand. But at the same time, to once again not been there is to not know anything. And I'm going to say the reason why. Let's go deeper into that, because there's much more. Yes, that it is in fact a whole lot, a world much more. Let me tell you, when I say that part about a person would not have known. A person who was in the midst of it, yes, they would have known, in fact, what is in fact a half truth. I said that. They would have, yes, they would have seen just enough to come out and tell you publicly, as in the public, or even come out correcting others publicly with the truth. The rest of the truth, seeming there's half truth, there's another half involved in this, in which the woman is not stating, and yet didn't take the time to come out and fully state out her mouth, or even online on any of these blog type of things and social media. Because see, to say there's in fact half truth being spoken about, it's in fact shut that very thing down, being the mother in which you stand, by just coming out, open your mouth, or even typing on the keyboard to put it flat on the screen and say, you know what, let me tell you, you guys don't know this because first of all, you don't live in my house, and that didn't in fact take place last night. If you're not going to tell, as in dispel everything, as in the final outcome of what actually in fact happened that night, then you will leave some other type of detail saying, in the realm of slashing people's tires. That's a metaphor. Slashing people's tires, as in the viewer's eyes, by shutting them down, by saying, you know what, that didn't in fact happen, and that didn't happen. But I can tell you what in fact happened when it came to this. Or the mother possibly would have took it upon herself to say that what you're saying is not right. That sort of thing wouldn't have played down in my house, and this is why. They would have gave the examples of them being an individual themselves, not being involved in any type of corruption because of their nature not being of that level or caliber and doing that sort of thing, carrying out crimes of that matter. A parent that didn't like how they were being, say, talked about, would have in fact taken the time to represent themselves in the formal fashion of stopping the conversation as it was going. On any blog, internet, wherever they could place themselves an opportunity to be seen, to say, I'm Asia Degree's mother, and this right here stops right now. as in that is in fact not us, as in the family members. But who's to say that is even going to stop a crowd of people? Because once again, they still have the right, even if the mother want them to say stuff about the family or not, the mother can't stop that type of thing. No, she can't. There's no way for her to stop that type of thing, because remember, the public from the outside, even myself, represent the FBI as well as police, as well as we represent missing persons teams, is what I'm trying to say. You don't broadcast and then ask for the public to be involved in something and then push them out of that situation. So mother can't really stop that type of thing. No, she can't. She can't get on anything and say, you know what? I don't like what y'all saying, and this needs to stop right here and now. She can't do that. That's a waste of time, because not only that, that's going to in fact lead to arguments. To say, well, if you're this mad about whatever, then you're angry, which is showing more into the family, which is possibly why she never said anything, and yet she should have said something to not make herself appear less guilty. Because to say that there's half truth there is to say there's possibility that there could in fact be guilt there as well. Yes, guilt. To come out and say out of your mouth, the public is speaking half truths, and yet you never once say what the half truth is, and yet everybody standing today, possibly even FBI and police and sheriff's office, detectives, and everybody's like, what is she talking about, half truths? It's to say the reason why more wasn't spoken of is possibly because she didn't want anybody else to know what more there was to say, as in a possible outlaw outcome. Those two words don't fit together, outlaw, outcome, and yet they do, because even presented in that could possibly stand guilt, as in a resignation, as in somebody putting someone away in the sense. Yes, it does. So, yeah, I don't get that. That doesn't make sense. It falls out of line even with the timeline. Yes, it does. If that completely falls out of line with the whole timeline, and even the night, even that night, this what I'm saying, it falls out of line with even the timeline of the night. Even when Asia mom says the public is speaking half truths about the situation that had went down that night. Because once again, to not have been there as the crime was happening is to not know what a half truth is, right? I'm asking. The only way to gather materials is to ask. I'm saying somebody asked the mother. Seeming all type of people in this world got access to the mother, even the news themselves. Somebody need to take it upon themselves and take the mother by the hand and ask her, you know what? What in fact is a half truth? Because see, if a half truth, because it's getting heavy, that's what I'm saying. If a half truth is not all the way there, then that's to stand and say possibly a lie could be fully there. You got to understand percentages, as in working around a problem and solving them, in the realm of somebody not wanting to play the game of submission, as in giving up themselves and saying something is completely off in the timeline in all of this, even in the realm of the half truth. Even the timing of the half truth is completely off, let me tell you. Yes, it is. Because it's a percentage in that. To not have a whole piece is to know you got a half piece. So if something is half and it's not whole, then it could in fact possibly be lie. As in something lying there in the equation, and yet completely not seen by the eyes themselves, as even by, say, a viewer trying to even figure out the percentages with me. What is the lie? Or where is it, I should say? Because in all this almost seems as if there's like lies not being told. Something is not right, man, I'm saying. I've been saying that from the beginning, something's not right. And it's so sad that even say a town of people or a public environment of people that live surrounding that area to even take it upon themselves to even want to believe a mother or father could even do something like that to their own child. I'm saying much of the public, even more than has been said even on the TV screen, much of the public around the Shelby area or even around Burke and all that other place of where they're at, much of those people believe that the mother and father possibly did that, as in did this crime, the situation. That's sad in itself. It's very sad. Because see, to have public scrutiny and have so many people want to believe as in a miracle possibly being there, a child escaping, possibly coming home to you, and you gather them in your arms, possibly saying, I'm so glad you made it home. It's a seed that could possibly come or never come. But not only that, your very neighbors thinking that you have possibly done such a thing, such as in the realm of this corruption, which speaks of guilt, pronounced guilt. And not only that, to have a community of people to think that you have done that to your very own child, is for them not to really know how to, in effect, support you. How could they? They don't know how to take the mother and father, I'm thinking. Because if you're living in the same environment and you think a mother and father could have possibly done that to their child, and yet you still live in that environment and you're supporting and you're hoping and praying someday Asia can come home, and yet you still live in that same area around those same people, it's in a sense that type of thing puts fear in people, as in they don't know what the situation happened, possibly between the mother and father. They don't know if it was a fist fight, and say Asia could have got killed, like murdered in the process, either by accident or even purposely, because people think lunatic stands behind that, and even that will make somebody want to move out, as in move away. But not only that, in the realm of supporting a family like that, they don't know how to take that family. And so when there's intuition there that something is off, as in the possibility of the parents of that child could have in fact killed that child or something even like that, there's nothing worse than that. Then that's to say that the community do not know how to take you, the parents. How could they? First of all, they don't know you. They don't know your home life. They don't know what type of environment it was every single day, because they were not in the four walls of the house. And so if they don't know how to take you, they really don't know how to stand with you, as in present themselves with you, them being the outsider, publicly representing you, and you being the parent. A public supporter of a missing child wouldn't really know where to stand in all this, is what I'm trying to say. Because it's too much going on, for one. And not only that, it's been how many years since the child has returned? And not only that, when this first happened, because I think when I was looking up about her saying the half truths, that was spoken of way back around when the child first went missing, even somewhere, I think around 2001, 2002, 2003, somewhere around that time period as well. But yet she still spoke it out of her mouth. So the question is why? Because when somebody goes missing that young in age, it's for everybody to speak on it, ask question about it, and try to figure out where they even stand with you. Because if you want a child to be found and you tell the public, help me with this situation, and yet something about you seems unsettling, as in off in relation to this child's case, then they're going to in fact question you, the mother. They have to. Remember, you told them you wanted them involved. And so for them to see from the outside looking in, to get involved as you wanted them to do, is to start to pick you apart. Yes, the mother, and even the father, and possibly even the brother, because there's things many of that brother ain't telling. Oh, best believe there's many things he ain't telling, because to hear a bed squeak at night, at random times of night, and even in the daytime, is to keep some things you ain't even saying, even in a child going disappearing somewhere around 4 a.m. in the morning. Somebody have had to heard, is what I'm trying to say. So Yes. What is with all this? So, if a mother did not like the public scrutiny she received, then she shouldn't have put her child's face out there in the first place. I'm saying being a missing child. Because remember, everything comes with the territory. To put something out is, in effect, receive the very thing back in the form of somebody trying to help solve a situation, as in a young child bringing a young life home, as you have requested, you being the mother, the father, as well as the brother. Right? Am I right or am I wrong? Speak it, leave it down in the comments section. So, you're going to have to, in fact, learn and understand how to take public scrutiny and not go hide away from that very thing. Because to be involved in all this is to say you could have, in fact, played a role in it. So public scrutiny comes with that. So moving on. We got to move on right quick. So I said that because the only thing we can go by when she said there was half-truths, the reason why I question that, because the only information that was gathered and presented to us, the public, in our face, the very thing of which stood right in front of our face to even question her from the beginning, was the bits and pieces the FBI as in law enforcement offered us, as well as the news, as well as the Montel Williams shows and other shows, as well as news. Yes, her local news, or where she stays, Shelby, that area. So if there was nothing else said outside of, say, what law enforcement said, the FBI said, and the news said, then what else is other people saying? But as I go back to the blog once again, if she's mad about that, people saying stuff on the blog, they're going to. That is the point. Because even that leads to a conclusion of somebody being found, because it points at questioning, even the parents. Yes, I said, she said about the half-truth, and yet some of these mothers haven't even released enough information on their child for the public to even know who she is or was. Because I heard the young girl was afraid of the dark. I heard she was afraid of dogs. We heard about the fact that she had read a book about the adventure of, say, some child going on an adventure, being kidnapped and then being sent back home. We heard about that the whipping book, or whatever, the whipping boy, was that the name of the book that she read? But that still wasn't not enough information to not give the community, or even the public, even on TV, the grand scheme of things. Even if you don't put enough information there in relation to the child's personality, is to know you're keeping it close to heart, as in not saying. But see, even that presents a problem in the realm of knowing who she was, the child, who she is and was. If the parents don't tell in mass media who the child was, then it shows the child didn't have a personality of her own. To never speak and show the world who your child is, much more than her being afraid of the dark and being fearful of dogs, and say even going over her aunt's and uncle's house, you got to delve deeper in that information. Even that helps to solve a case. It puts puzzle pieces together, because it shows the world this young child, in fact, had a personality. Yes, it does. And so to say what her personality was is to, in fact, express how she would have carried herself amongst other people, outside of just saying her cousin said she wouldn't go places alone, or she wouldn't leave the house unless her mother and father knew. You got to paint a much bigger picture than what was painted, and not give just little small pieces. They don't fit the small pieces of information. You have to show a personality. Yeah, I'm saying the mother or father didn't really show too much of the child's personality, or even of her personality quirks. It's like almost as if they have been airbrushed completely out of the picture. Her personalities, yes, they have. Her personality, not her personalities, but her personality. To not present enough about a person is to not know enough, as in gathering clues and trying to find her in a missing persons result. Most parents of missing children share and express about their kids as in the detail. Yes, beyond just being afraid of the dark. And to not share enough on your child's personality, as in how they operate day to day, as in much more detail, it's as if they were never there from the beginning, as in the child. To not share on your child's personality is to almost say that child was never there from the beginning, even leaving in the home, not even Asia's coat. Because see, this is where the picture, as in airbrushing the picture out, as in it all stands messy, this is where we have a problem. If you don't show your child's face in relation to a personality, as in a whole puzzle piece, a picture putting it together, it's to say she possibly wasn't even living there from the beginning, because remember, her coat wasn't even there. As in on her back, leaving out of the house that night. That's a problem. And I said I call neglect on even that. If that sort of thing was an issue there. I'm not saying it wasn't, yet it could have been. Neglect. Because people that love and cherish and, are devoted to their children speak a lot on their children. They want their children to be seen a lot. They want to be heard speaking about their children, even if it's all panned across the globe on TV, radio, and everywhere else, mass media driven. And not only that, for a coat to not have been involved points you to something is wrong there, as in something is off. My apologies in that. But to not have a personality there, as in it's showing, being expressed by the parents, it's to not have a coat there as well. Why is that? Why not have a personality being shown on TV or movies, even in today, right now, although it happened in 2000, February 14, 2000, on Valentine's Day and her anniversary, despite that thing of the disappearance of Asia happening way back then, why not be seen in her, showing her, I'm saying the parents today, with TV and movie and all that other stuff in relation to her to try to bring her home? And then not only that, to not want to do that is to almost point to like as if she was never there in the first place, as it never lived there, like a vacancy, maybe neglect. And then you sit the coat on top of that and not having one when she left out the home that night. That's strange. You cannot tell me that is not strange. For a family to kind of walk away and say we're not going to put ourselves all the way out there being seen by mass media and global media. And not only that, our child is gone and she never took a coat, knowing it was 40 degrees outside, ice cold, enough to get hypothermia to walk that far in the rain. And it was pitch black where you couldn't even see in the first place, because to walk out in an area that pitch black is to, let me think, not go anywhere. Matter of fact, not even leave the house, as in the home. Because you can't walk out there with a flashlight. I've been out in that type of area before. Yes, I have. Did I speak about my grandfather? The rural country area. You can't go outside in that type of environment without headlights. Yes, you can't. Because you can't even see your nose when you're out there. You can't even see your fingertips when you're out there. You can't even see your own feet, because remember, it's pitch black. So who took her out there? It's just a question. It is just a question. So all this talk about half-truths, all this talk about the half-truth, and yet nobody's speaking on it as in the definition. Because to say something is to know there's a definition that stands in that, and yet what? I myself am a very highly intellectual being, and yet even I couldn't even figure that out. Of what could this woman mean about a half-truth? So we just wait for her to tell us if it's ever said. And hopefully her child returns home. Who knows on even that? Because to not put it out there, her face, and wanting people to know, I guess it's almost forget about it. The child, almost forget about her. To not want anybody to know too much about the child and all these half-truths is to completely forget about her. It's how kids are completely going off somewhere and die, as in be dead, whether in the hands of their own parents or somebody else, how they become victims. People be wanting people to purposely forget about stuff, and yet they want that to bypass your eyes. Anyways, so I'm keen to know just what this mother is speaking on when she states the public is stating half-truths. I said that for like the 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th, 14th, 15th time. What is the woman saying? Yes, to be a part of something, if you know that there's a half-truth involved, what I'm saying is to be a part of something is to stand up and say, as in testify. Stand up and say and testify, even in the witness. See, I don't think police could even do anything like that, take the woman to court just to allow her to present herself loud enough to testify what in fact she could have possibly seen in all of this half-truth. Because yes, it in fact stands there. I seen what I seen with my own two eyes about the simple fact of the half-truth that the mother, she took it upon her time to say that. And the question, yes, in the public is still in question of what is that half-truth. Why wouldn't they be? She said it. So, to be a part of something is to stand up and say, as in testify, if the truth is there undercover, lurking, as in it being buried beyond the world being able to see on the TV, and yet someone said half-truths. Yes, they did. But the half-truths, all the half-truths stand between the mother and the public hearing what she said. The half-truth. Because she stopped it in the process of really dispelling what in fact it was. How does a person know a truth when they weren't there as the crime was going on? That's something. That's not right. It's off. It's like almost telling something, as in leading us somewhere. It's leading us to an individual, in which is not saying, as in haven't said anything at all, as in being told. The half-truth is leading us to someone. That type of thing is really starting to make the intention go on the mother, as in questioning what is she saying, the half-truths. I had to sigh on that. But yeah, it is said only a mother tucks her child into bed at night, and yet who knows? Maybe daddy did it. Who knows? And even that is a question. Yes, I'm asking. It is said only a mother tucks her child into bed at night, even at 9 years old. And yet who knows? But maybe daddy did it. Where's the father? How does he play out in all this? I even asked that before. Maybe daddy did it. And even that stands as a question. It has to, because to say, oh, come help me find my lost child is to, in fact, put other people in it, as in your situation. You asked for them to be in your situation, because remember, she went missing. And I can understand the police put themselves in a situation by even the father making that 911 call, and even that call is questionable. Yes, I'm going to make a video about that father's 911 call, because it's highly questionable. There's certain things that stood out in his 911 call. To pick certain things apart is to see it from afar, right? That in itself is off the hook. That in itself is off the hook. The FBI put themselves there because even if they wouldn't have taken it upon themselves to put themselves there, as in letting the world know that a child is missing, then the FBI themselves will possibly end up in jail themselves, where they already stand. It's funny and yet it's not. If the FBI wouldn't have let us, the public, know that this young child was missing, then the FBI themselves would in fact be in jail, as in put in jail, as in already surrounded where they already stand. Even that is interesting, what I just said. Should I repeat that? Because there's even subliminal messaging even in that, and yet I'm not even into conspiracy theorists and all that other stuff. No, I'm not. But to say something once is to say it twice without actually even saying what you are in fact trying to say. You're saying it directly, right? But indirectly, just in the way that Asia's family kind of almost put themselves out to the world. They do it directly as well as indirectly, and yet to in fact state, as in come up to their level of where they stand, is to say something to them in that same way. If the FBI wouldn't have taken it upon themselves to put Asia out there being a missing person, then they would in fact be in jail, as in surrounding where they are. They will be standing right where they are, in the center of where they are, in jail. The FBI. People got me when I said that. That's very deep, isn't it? That's in fact a highlight. It is. It needs almost, yes, it is. It's a highlight. Didn't they said Asia? Wait a minute. Let me see if I can string that. Okay, the information. Yes, didn't they say, when I mentioned highlight, didn't they say Asia had a marker that was found? Was that in fact a highlighter? They said green marker, right? So I'm thinking a highlighter. Why would somebody plant a highlighter, a green one at that, unless they know what she does with that highlighter? I'm questioning. Didn't I say symbolism? Didn't I mention about symbology, symbolism in the realm? And that ain't even conspiracy theorist ideals. No, it's not. This is let me tell you. That whole whatever had to be a setup, even in the realm of a formulated process, in which it stands, and yet nobody is speaking on it. Are they afraid or timid of coming forward? And that the mess in which it stands in the four walls of that house? Because see, even that marker, the very thing stood out to me. It's one of the things that stood the most. Out of many of her things, outside of just that book bag and that hair bow. If somebody is going to plant a pencil, whether sharpened or not, or even marker, it's to plant it with a reason, as in with a purpose, as in a motive, and it being found. And yet, nobody is going to take it upon themselves to even plant and place a marker somewhere unless they know what in fact that child has did and done with that marker on the day-to-day basis. In the realm of school and even school homework, say possibly late in the evening, because remember, even parents help in that. Pencil, paper, marker, school sharpener, that's at home to possibly whatever with it, right? But there's even symbolism in the marker, and that very thing stood out to me one of the most when I mentioned on the highlight, as even say highlighter, right? To gather information is to pick it apart. You got to pick stuff apart, as in where loose strings are hanging, coming apart, and where I'm able to see them, and yet most people can't see them. I'm sure FBI can't, but maybe possibly not completely, because even if FBI could see certain things, then they would have found her by now, or something would have added up. And yet to see loose strings hanging there and picking this information apart is to, once again, possibly ask about even that marker. See, I don't think an abductor is going to plant a marker if he doesn't know what she uses it for. Because once again, that sort of thing stands out the most. It's bright in color. It has to. A green marker stands out the most. It highlights things. It raises up information so that you can in fact see it. That's the point of a highlighter or marker, green marker in the first place. If it was green, then it in fact had to be a highlighter, I'm thinking, because I can't see no point of having just a green marker. If you're going to use a green marker, you might as well use a crayon because that's almost next to it. You would have to in fact have a reason to even use a green marker, even as a child. So a green marker would in fact raise information up, because remember, it means to highlight something. A pencil doesn't. A pencil you just write with a pencil. And yet I'm sure there's some type of symbolism even in that. And despite me not fully understanding symbolism, I understand this almost in the realm of a marker. Because for how many times I done been at college, you need stuff to stand out. So I'm thinking for a 9-year-old girl, maybe the same thing, because even my nieces and even my nephews have used markers. But if it was a marker, for a green marker, say for a coloring book, then I can see, right? That sort of thing will be for coloring something. Yes, it would, but what will be the point of, say, just a green marker? I'm thinking that fits in with schoolwork. Don't you think? When you think of a green marker, not to get too far off a topic, but when you think of a green marker, you think of schoolwork? I think of that sort of thing, schoolwork, as in information standing up high, bright, and as in raised up just enough so you can see it. That's the point of using a highlighter or a green marker in the first place, I'm thinking. I need to know kind of what type of marker that was. I do kind of need to know. Many of us deserve to know, right? That's the point in finding someone. Because a touch on something in the form of information, as in looking into it, is to, in fact, be able to solve something. It's the truth. Whatever that type of marker it was, it speaks on its own, as it speaks. Let me think. What is a word for? A green marker would, in fact, tell on itself, as in it being planted there for whatever reason. It has to, because remember, it's planted all this for a reason. To plant a green marker, I'm wondering what kind of marker it was. I really do. Because that would say, to find out what type of marker that was, that would in fact say a lot. Some of these little things, treasures that was planted of hers, are various missing pieces, as in the link. And yet to be told what they are is to possibly be able to solve the case. You never know. A green marker. Why would a green marker be there planted? I said before, if that was a highlighter, then a parent would in fact know what that stands for. Even a teacher would know what that stands for, because they teach classrooms. Yes, they would. A school teacher would know the point and position of a green marker. Yes, they would. And so would a parent. Because who else is involved in helping a child learn schoolwork, as well as helping her to even possibly figure out her homework if there's an issue or something? Because see, even if a parent, like many of us have nieces and nephews, if we take it upon the time and stand over our niece, or that's her child, the woman's child. But I'm saying anybody that got kids could even do this sort of thing. If you take the time and stand over that child as they're doing homework, you would in fact know a green marker is there. You would in fact know a green marker is there because it stands out the most. It's bright. It's loud. And not only that, usually children like to wear bright clothes. I mentioned about that. Children love a lot of times to wear bright clothes. It's the first thing their eyes see. That's why so many children like McDonald's, because that brightness, that redness, and that yellow mixed together draws and attracts them. That's color psychology. It is. So for that green marker, the only two possible people I can see that would know the symbolism of that marker is, say, a parent or a school teacher or a possible school tutor, somebody who possibly would have helped Asia with her homework, as in her schoolwork or something like that. Because see, that all points and ties in with classroom. The green marker, yes it does. That all that points in, that green marker and that pencil, all that material points in with schoolwork, as in homework being involved in this. Homework, schoolwork, homework, whatever you want to call it, whatever you like to call it. That's all involved in this. I heard, I don't know how true that was that within her wallet was a picture of an unidentified individual as in another little girl. Sorry about my words. I'm fumbling because to talk all day is to get tired, which is where I'm at, and yet the time on my own end is ticking, and yet I got like 2-3 more pages to go, right? But supposedly in Asia's wallet, or near it, or on top of it, somewhere around in that vicinity, there was a picture of a young child somewhere around Asia's age, 8, 9, or 10 years old, in which the woman, I think at the shed, Turner Upholstery, that Lady Debbie said she found on her premises, and yet none of the school children that the FBI asked up at Asia's school, none of them knew who that child was, right? Even that stood out the most. And not only that, let me see, I'm sure that lady didn't know. The lady, the owner of the shed, didn't know who that child was. More likely, she didn't know. The school children that went to school with Asia, many of them on the premises of her own school, didn't know. So many individuals surrounding that area didn't know who that picture was of, as in the little girl. Yes, with Asia's belongings, if that's truth. Is it true? I'm still in question of if that was in fact truth. Because even if you put a picture like that out, even that almost spells as an tainted mystery. Something about that doesn't add up. Because if a pencil is there and a marker is there, and you know marker is involved with school just as well as pencil is involved with school, and say a young child's photograph is found in that material situation in that woman's shed with Asia's stuff, if a photo was in Asia's wallet, then that points to that young child's picture as well points to school. Because remember, the photo is identified as a child's school photo. Right? It's a photograph shot from a school child that was possibly taken at school. So those 3 things in fact represent school. And not only that, see, you gotta look much further. Most people don't look much further, and yet I can. I can see much more further into this, because to try to solve a mystery, I said the pieces. The marker represents school. The pencil represents school. That young child photo that was in or on top of Asia's wallet, in fact, represents school. Because the child's photo was more than likely taken at school, depending on how the photo looked. If it was taken at home, then that's a whole different thing. Then this, in fact, wouldn't really completely represent school. But once again, a child's photo being planted like that still would, in fact, represent school, despite me not understanding symbology. Because what are the very things in which a child takes to school? Pencils markers, paper, and everything else. And yet the point in the direction of, say, a photograph of a young girl is to say school is also involved in that. And yet the little girl of that in that picture, who nobody seems to know, did not in fact go to that school. So somebody could have in fact put that photo there of that little girl to in fact divert attention away from even themselves. Whoever planned it, whatever, they could possibly try to make it seem, because it goes at all angles with this. If you can see it at all angles with something, as in a box, how I think like a Rubik's Cube, you can see this is not right. This situation is not right. Let me tell you. It goes in every single angle, as in the possibilities. Yes, it does. If you put a pencil out there and you put a marker out there and you put a photograph of a young child, all that represents school. That represents a school like elementary or something like that, right? And not only that, it points to as if a child's teacher or somebody could have done that. As in a school teacher, yes, it does. Because what sits in a classroom? A pencil, a marker, various children, as well as possibly that young child that was identified on that picture, and yet nobody know who she is. All that represents school in a form and fashion. Even them pants. Somebody said pants was planted there with her stuff somewhere around that shed as well. That in itself could be a diversion. Yes, it can be, as in pushing the attention away off of somebody, as in away from themselves, and planning that very thing on, say, another individual, as in even trying to make it look like a school teacher was involved. I can see into this. Depending on, see, that's why I said, that's why this is a hard to solve case. Because it almost stands and points in every direction, depending on the information in which it pull out. Yes, it does. Because, see, even with pants being planted, say if the parents was involved in this, them pants could be planted by even by Asia's mother herself, to make it seem like a man was there, but possibly that the father wasn't involved. I'm saying that could even go towards a mistress, a realm of that, because some of these women out here are psychotic. Why? Which is why many of us don't want to be bothered. Yes, the God to honest truth, even in being in traffic with them, because they act so spontaneous and crazy. Behavior of mistresses and even stalkers, right? So that sort of thing, if you look at this situation, say if a crazy mistress was involved, as in somebody, the father cheating, then a woman will possibly plant some man's pants, right? To get back, because he probably didn't want to be with her. Women do that. You hear all type of stuff. Some of the stuff I heard growing up, oh my goodness, you would not want to be involved in none of that. Matter of fact, yes, you would not. And so, because people get killed in even that, yes, they do. I had a best friend, let me tell you, outside of my uncle being murdered the way he was, which made me move as well as why I did. I had a best friend that her brother's girlfriend took it upon himself to murder him and put him, they left him, what it was, they shot him, but he wasn't completely dead. And they let the car run out in the field with his body in it. And that's how he died. Because for a car to sit like that, it's to know carbon monoxide poisoning stands in that. To have a gunshot wound, right? To have a gunshot wound and let the car run, sit still like that, and know you can't breathe in fresh air, laying in the trunk waiting to die, is to know you're going to in fact meet death there in the trunk of the car, which that happened to my best friend's brother. She ain't been the same since then. I understand why. She has not been the same since then, since men, and I can very understand why. So, pointing back to what I was saying, even that was long-winded, pointing back to what I was saying, if you go back and you say pencil, marker, young child's photo, and yet nobody at the school know who she is, then even if a mother, father was even involved, and say Asia disappearing, And even in murdering her purposely or by accidental, they could have in fact planted that stuff there themselves and make it look like a school teacher have done it. Because remember, even her candies, as in her candy wrappers, were involved in that as well. See what I'm going with this? To be able to look, let me tell you, to be able to look as in see through something for which it stands, it all hangs out. This whole situation right here, even with that. And I had to wait to say it in this video when I'm saying about the mother saying the half truths. Maybe that was one of the articles in relation to the half truth in which she's not speaking on, as in the unspoken. Pencil, marker, young child's photo, and then not only that, candy wrappers. The reason why I said candy wrappers, right, and why I said this couldn't have been no ransom type of thing, as in money, drug situation going down. The reason why I mentioned candy wrappers is because remember, even the young child's candy supposedly came from school. That's what it's been said, is that the child Asia's candy wrappers that were found, supposedly those was the same candies that came from her school, as in the wrappers being found, as in somebody possibly ate them or threw them away, gotten rid of the candy, and yet just fumbled up the wrappers and threw them on the ground to make it look like she left and ran away from home, as in walked away on her own. And yet we all know she didn't. No, she did not. That little girl did not walk around at that time, because first of all, to be that young and that deathly afraid of dogs is to know they stand out there somewhere to get you. Possibly a mauling by a dog, yes. Asia degree possibly more than likely feared that. And not only that, is to be paranoid, looking around you to see who might in fact grab you as you're trying to meet up with this supposed abductor, who is your new friend or possible friend. Whatever. That in effect, we can just completely get rid of that right there, of her leaving the house. That little girl more than likely did not go anywhere. She more than likely did not go anywhere. So, getting back to what I was saying, candy wrappers, if they came from school, and if that is in fact a fact as in the truth, then the candy wrappers represent school. Not only that, because the candy wrappers in fact came supposedly, I guess, for Valentine's Day, in relation, all that ties in with that. That's why you have candies or something like that involved or something. Was that a part of that, or am I not completely there all the way? Am I there all the way, or am I halfway there? Because see, to see information online, even by the FBI, is to be like, come on, which information is real, which information is exact, and which information is the real evidence, because for the public to not really know is to try to see so they can get involved. So supposedly candy wrappers, as I seen online, was given to her by the school itself. Is that a truth? I need somebody to tell me if that's the truth. The candy wrappers was supposedly given to the young girl by the school, and if that's the truth, then I'm thinking it will be in relation to Valentine's Day, possibly the day before. Because don't kids give away cards and candy for that type of thing? Some schools celebrate that, yet some schools don't, even on the day, and sometimes the day before, right? So those candy wrappers represented school. The pencil represented school. The marker as well represented school. That young child's photo, which is not identified completely by police and them not knowing, they didn't even show that to the public, which is why we don't know who she is, that identifies as school as well. But if a parent was once again possibly murdered their child by purpose or accident, to know even guilt stands in that. Something was buzzing off in my mind, like guilt. As I was looking over there trying to get my thoughts, something kept saying guilt, but I wanted to wait to get there. Guilt could possibly stand in that, and yet to divert the attention from being found guilty is to plant that sort of stuff there to make it look like a teacher was involved. If you look at it much more deeper, scope it out. Because why are those materials like that representing teacher, right? And the pants, more than anything. Because see, the police never once did say whose pants those were, but anybody could have planted those pants, right? They could have. And there might not even be DNA on that, because remember, there are secondhand stores in which people buy stuff from, right? Am I right or am I wrong? Was pants planted by Asia stuff? Is that a truth or a fact? They had too much information on the internet, even in pertaining to the FBI, when they don't say too much, it's to almost get lost in trying to find out even what's truth from fact. So pants could have been planted even by the family if they were involved, because that diverts the attention off of them and puts it on some other man. And let's see, what man will be close to home and connection in relation to Asia if a family member did that to her? What man will be close to home in relation to a school? More than likely a teacher. A teacher and school assignments and all that other stuff. But I keep sensing somebody is trying to divert the attention off. Yes, I do keep sensing that something like close to home. Something is off there. It's fishy. It is. Man, yes, only God knows. Only God knows. Weren't they into prayer? The family, weren't they into prayer and to God and religious? But who's to say that's even, because you got people, I've heard people say, well, they go to church and they've been to church. Do you know how many people go to church and they sit there as a pulpit and everything else is going on, and then when they go back home, they're a totally different person? You got to stop believing everything you see, even on the TV screen. And we always told that. Didn't somebody say that in a song? Wait a minute. Was that written in a song? I'm trying to remember. Everything is not real in what you see on the TV screen. I thought somebody said that in a song. I could be wrong. Even in relation to that, church individuals going to church and yet not being fully the individuals in which they portray themselves. Because even them type of individuals is a whole complete different way, even at home, and even sometimes in the bed at night, as in the bedroom, even lurking in young children's bedrooms while everybody else is in the bed sleeping, even at afar. It's the God to honest. It's the God. Yes, it is. It's the God honesty. Yes, it is. You got because see, if what is his name? If a Bishop Eddie Long was questionable in the realm of, say, sleeping around with young boys much younger than him, and that man was a pastor, then you know anything can go down in the middle of the night in the bed between an older adult and a young child, and them all being completely involved in church. So never turn a blind eye. Never say, well, such and such was a very good going church man, and every time I was around such and such, him or her in church, the mother or the father, they were such sweet, loving individuals, and yet you never even know. Because even when people turn out the lights at night, they're totally different people. Individuals, yes, they are. Consider sex behavior, as in, yes, the structure of the four walls of a house, and even two loving adults making love to each other, they're not going to do that very thing outside on the front public lawn. And so to not know how two grown individuals have sex, as in make love despite them going to church, and they're married, as in to not know the sexual detail of who could suck what off, as in, yes, a penis being involved or even a vagina being involved, to not know that detail is to not say you know them people in the house completely. Right? Not even myself can say that, but I can once again question it. But I'm speaking in the realm of when people say, well, such and such was a really honorable church-going citizen, a very upright citizen in the community. They went to church and they go to church, and you know they're loving towards their children and their whatever else. And sometimes them same individuals could be the very individuals creeping in their bed, their child's bed, creeping in their bed at night, playing with them and fondling them. As even other children in another bed and the mother or whoever is in the other room possibly sleep, or whatever she or he is doing, whoever could have possibly molested her if it even happened, right? All I'm trying to say is grown men, and sometimes even women, sneak in the bedroom of those who are laying down, which is young children. Even young boys are known to do that sort of thing, yes, to even their sisters or even to their brothers, and fondle them and play with them and get off in the middle of the night, and yet sometimes nobody knows about it. Until, say, that type of stuff creep out later, as in people finding out. Yes, and sometimes it never does. But that type of thing has a way of creeping out. It does. The fondling nature of, say, a grown man, a grown woman, putting her hands on a child, laying there with her, and possibly making love with her like she's a grown adult, as if she's wrapped in lace or something. That type of stuff has a way of like coming out. It has to, because remember, what's done in the dark always comes to the light. There's always an end to it all, is what I'm trying to say. There's always an end to this, is what I'm trying to say. More than likely, there's going to be an end to this. I can't see the police just say, you know what, this it's year number such and such, we're going to give up and walk away. I can't see that happening. That type of stuff doesn't really play out as in go down, I don't think. I'm sure in the past it has, but yet look at where we are in technology. Technology is being completely advanced to the form and fashion even kidnappers are not fully able to walk away. Because there's things which stand as able to scope out certain things, such as DNA, much more than it has in the past. Did you know that when people are psychopaths, such as mentally ill, did you know those people are able to, in fact, pass polygraph tests? Did you know that? Did you know that people who are mentally crazy, as in mentally insane, and deserve to be locked up somewhere, right, because they're known and prone to kill people and say possibly cover it up and all that? Did you know those sort of people can, in fact, pass polygraph tests? Yes, they can, because see, polygraph test goes by perspiration on your skin. It goes based upon bodily reactions, such as your moving response. It can even, I think, pick up anxiety and everything else, as the person that's investigating them while the test is going on, whoever gave the test, they can actually tell when someone is lying while taking that polygraph test. But the polygraph test is not completely reliable. No, it's not. Many people who are in fact full-blown criminals have in fact passed polygraph tests. You can look it up, and even FBI know this. Police and FBI know this. That's why they should make the family retake the test again for a second time. Because see, what I came to look up on Google was in relation to polygraph tests, a person can use drugs such as marijuana and other type of stuff to relax their body just enough for even the investigator not to see the one that distributed the test to them, to the mother or say the father. That mother or father, whoever, could use some type of drug enough to relax them, but not too much enough to be able to pass the test. So if a psychopath was using drugs and then they put some type of drug up on top of them as they were right before about to go in and take the test, it's to know they very well could have passed that test while drugs was involved. That is funny, and yet it's sad to say. It's a sick, sad world in which we live in. Listen to me when I say that. The reason why I'm laughing, because I'm in disbelief for the simple fact that police would even take it upon themselves to know that people are in fact passing these polygraph tests by even just having blood in their system. I mean, having their blood tainted in their system by ways of drugs, just to get them through that polygraph test. That's a funny thing, and yet it's a sad and sick thing. But the funny part was the fact that police won't step their game up just enough to catch that sort of thing. Because to know and understand something is wrong with your polygraph test is to in fact change the measure. As in the measurement, as in get rid of it and replace it with something else. Yes, you should, dear police, dear FBI, because if people are using narcotics or substances to pass a polygraph test, That's to know that you're allowing too many criminals to be involved in all type of affairs. And not only that, that's to know that they're out here somewhere walking amongst us. That's put many people, like all type of people, in harm's way, dealing with those sort of individuals, knowing they could have in fact drugged themselves enough but not too much in order to pass a polygraph test. That's an issue I'm trying to say. And police even know that, which is why supposedly something is being done as we speak in the realm of even the FBI or whoever distribute the test to try to even, yes, step their game up, which they should have did long ago. But even as you go, technology advances. FBI and all them is they're trying to step their game up as in improving the polygraph test, or even trying to see if that sort of thing should be getting rid of because it's not reliable. It's completely unreliable. Psychopaths who don't need drugs are one of the very first people who can pass that test even without medication, because remember, they're psychopaths, so they don't feel anything and sense anything from the beginning in the realm of, say, kidnapping and killing a young child, right? Just brutally killing her. A psychopath doesn't care. There's no feeling or emotion involved. So when he sit down and take a test like that, there's not going to be any emotion involved, as in a reaction in the form of sweating, sweaty palms and all that, like me and you would have if we were nervous. A psychopath is not going to have that reaction bodily while he's taking a polygraph test. So to say that if he doesn't have any emotion, he's not going to have a reaction, so he's going to be able to actually pass the test without failing it. And so one of Asia's parents, if they had anything to say do with this, they could have in fact been a psychopath, full blown, and actually got over on the test, which is why I said they need to retake it. Yes, again, them parents need to take a polygraph maybe 2 or 3 times, just enough to show what goes on as in the middle of the night in the house. They do. You don't. If a polygraph, see, this is what makes me mad at FBI and police, me being a public citizen myself. This is what makes me frustrated with FBI and police, and I hope they see this video. Yes, speaking to the universe, I hope the FBI as well as police see this video, so I can say to them, dear police and FBI, one of the very things which stand out and is strange to me, which make me mad at you guys, and yet I love you because you look out for people such as me and other individuals, right? Yes, you do. You're doing your job. Yes, you are, right? So I could commend you on that. But I don't like the simple fact that you guys know that a polygraph test is completely unreliable, and yet you do it anyway. You do it anyway, as in giving somebody polygraph test that could have been a full-blown murder in the form of a bloodbath. That's what I'm trying to speak on. A bloodbath, anything or any in that realm is what I'm trying to say. Police, you guys, FBI, y'all just do the polygraph test, and yet you know it's unreliable. So what's the sense of taking a polygraph in the first place? Y'all got to come up with something new, more endearing. Yes, you do, because many of us are out here and we don't need many critters like that. Yes, critters, people that kill and all that other. We don't need that type of activity going down while we're out here walking the streets. In the daytime, I prefer the daytime. The nighttime, we'll leave that alone. We'll leave that to all them other crazies, the loonies, the loony bins, the loony bags, whatever you want to call them. We'll leave it to them. But if a test is unreliable, then there's no point of keep giving it. Because if a polygraph test, you can pass that, and even an everyday person that will say, try to do something stupid and get in something to play a prank on police just to try to see if they can pass a polygraph test. People do all type of stuff on social media. Yes, they do. It's to know and understand the test does not need to be there. In 2018, that test does not need to be there. And possibly even way back then when Asia went up missing and they made her parents do the submission of polygraph testing. Because if it wasn't reliable, if it's not reliable now in taking a polygraph test in 2018, then it wasn't so much so back then. So it's like you need to get rid of it. You need to get rid of it, let it go, and find something else. Something that so many of us out here can live and survive in an environment without wondering and looking everywhere to scope out to see if there's criminals all around us, even in Walmart. In the toy kitty section is what I'm trying to say. I be looking out for babies in all of this, because all that is a problem is sickness. I don't like it. And if I didn't really care too much about young Asia enough to say, then I wouldn't be standing here in the first place. And my thing is really not to point at the parents. Once again, that's not the thing. I'm basically questioning everybody. But she looked like a young, caring individual to just be going lost somewhere like that at that time. That's enough to hurt anybody's feelings that's on the outside looking in. It is. Because you're like, man, that young child never had a chance, or did she? If she's still alive, possibly, but you never know even the living conditions in that. If she's tied up, chained up somewhere, even yet today, still being held captive by somebody out somewhere. I still don't think that's it. I think the situation points directly at home, in her home, but who's to know? You can only question. But yet and still, that in itself is enough to make somebody cry tears. Yes, it is, over the simple fact that a young girl could go away like that, and to look at her future to say, what could it have actually been? Because see, even many of us have nieces and nephews and want the best for our nieces and nephews' future. And them living in any environment. That's only common sense. That's human nature. You want the best for other people, and more so young children, because remember, they're new to the earth. So they're new to experiences. They should be able to enjoy experience. Children should be able to enjoy experiences as well as play, without them being caught up in harm, without them even deserving harm, such as being taken and possibly killed, or even possibly having to force even themselves to walk away, as in to get away from a position. From a situation. That's still a position. Yes, it is. To be in a house is to be in a position you might not have wanted to be in. So for a young child to possibly want to remove herself, if say she did run away, possibly didn't, but if she did, a child shouldn't have to do that sort of thing. To be taken out, say outside of her own house, to say escape possible abuse if it was there, in which we still question, was abuse there? And yet once again, for the mother to still say half truths, it's a no. In fact, abuse could possibly stand in that house. And if it does, it possibly could even await the mother every day. Who knows? You never know these people's household. You don't know. So to be saying, oh, such and such was kind and lovely, you don't even know what could stand up under even that. Because see, some of that could even be showboating. A lot of people out here are showboating. Yes, they are. Even with their children at hand. They show the world that they're this and that with their children, and yet they are in fact not. They're beating and abusing them even at night or in the middle of the night, and yet no one knows. Which is why I stood to question. I wonder what the mother knows. I wonder what she's not telling. Because see, even a Christian-fied woman, is that the term? Even a Christian woman is to in fact say her prayers besides her bed in the traditional fashion. And hopefully no lust is involved or was involved, as in molestation. So let me repeat that. Only God knows. I'm going up a few lines. I'm going in reverse a few lines. I said, who knows? Only God knows. And even he sees. To be a church individual, church going individual, that's for the individual that goes to church, and not just saying Asia's mother or father, anybody that goes to church. This message is for you. Who knows? Only God knows. That's the message for the church individuals. And the wrongdoing when things play out. Anywhere in the atmosphere. And not just in people's houses. Even walking down the street, wherever, right? Moving on. So only God knows. And even he sees at night while others are making prayers besides their bed. In the traditional fashion. And hopefully not lust. Hopefully no lust was involved, as in molestation. I'm hoping that wasn't a factor in any of that. Even if a child wanted to run away. I gotta go back and trace a mother's footsteps, as in her secrets. What were they? The mother. What were your secrets? What were your secrets? What were they? What in fact is a half truth? Because see, you should never say anything like that if there's nothing bigger involved. Because see, if you say a half truth like that out to the public, what it will spell as much as going on even in the home, even in today, despite it being said back then. Because to say something is a half truth is to say a possible man-woman beater could be living there with you. And yet to escape the situation is to say something like a half truth in the manner of what you did, in which you feel you can't escape it. Because even he would want to in fact silence you down, as in quiet you down, not being seen all over TV, and want to keep everything more local. That's what I'm trying to say. If a woman say there's half truths, as in she knows what played out, sometimes a woman that is in a domestic violent environment, atmosphere that she wants to escape, sometimes will in fact say those sort of things as well. Because to want to leave out an environment is to sometimes not go anywhere by forms of, say, strangulation, of a grown man putting his hands on a woman in places of where she can't breathe. Because she might want to leave, as in walk out of that house and leave even him for good. Abuse, domestic violence. So what is the woman's secrets? Only she knows, and what she's not telling. Domestic violence. Could that have been at play as well? Because see, to be in too far, rewind. To be too far in a situation, as in to be too far in something, as in to be caught up in it, is to almost stand out. To be too far in a situation is to be almost caught up in that very situation, as entangled. The situation. All that. To be too far in a situation is to be caught up in that situation as entangled, which is why I question domestic violence. Because see, to state something as a half-truth is to know something more is involved there, in which you're not speaking on the mother, and it could very well be domestic violence. And yet for a man to put his hands on a woman, or even on any of the children, is to know they're not leaving, as in going anywhere, as in nobody is escaping this abuse. Because remember, once again, an abuser is an abuser. He's going to take it fully there by letting all of you guys know none of you are leaving this home. Because I'm an abuser. That's how men think and feel in the realm of abuse. You see it all the time, how some of these men who have abused women or even children, how they beat on them in the fashion of even emotionally, by screaming and yelling at them or threatening them with death, on how they're not leaving their own house. Right? So a mother should really never say half truths if she's never going to divulge the full secret. Because see, even the public will question that half truth in the realm of domestic violence. Because see, the reason why I'm saying that, when I said caught up in a situation, if a woman gets herself in a situation where she's an abusive man, more than likely she's stuck, as there's no getting out. And there ain't no getting around even that very thing of what you're in, right? And yet to point police to the fact that you might be being abused is to call it out. For a woman, but I don't even think her husband would allow that. He would see too much into that. I'm thinking, if you're a woman being abused, and say you want to in fact escape the abuse with your children, leave the house, and yet you know you can't because you fear that very man, because he's crazy in the head from the first, possibly a psychopath, is to want to get out And yet to tip the police off to say that there is in fact abuse here, but I can't outwardly say it as an open and say that abuser say possibly hurt or harm or kill Asia, is to once again throw it out in the atmosphere. The mother, if she wasn't the crazy one, she'll possibly throw it out so that people can know and see she's trapped in an abusive situation she can't get out of or even walk out of. Does that sound long drawn out, and yet it still makes sense? If you're trapped with let me say, because abuse goes down every day. Some of us know family members who have been beaten and abused, women by men, crazy men at that. Because you got to be real crazy to be doing that type of thing to a woman or even to child, beating on them. So if a woman is stuck in that type of abusive domestic violence relationship, and say even she wanted to walk away, even she would be the type that will possibly say, if her child was even killed in that, say the child got in the way, stepped in the way and was killed in that, or the person possibly just murdered the child purposely anyway, just to kill them, because that's abuse in that. Then say if a mother was trying to escape, as in leave, she would possibly tip the police off, as in the officers, by saying half truths, as in the information, to say, come find me, come get me, because I'm being abused. Me and my children is being abused. That's if a mother is in fact being abused and wants to leave. And yet that mother does not seem like that type. She seemed more like the type that she could in fact be the abuser. Look at how big and manly she looks. More so than me, right? She looked like she might beat something down with a few trees, is what I'm trying to say. Because of how her stature is big and bulky, is what I'm trying to say. And not only that, she almost come across as somewhat domineering, despite her portraying herself whatever way. See, those of us who have been around, say, global media, as in knowing and understanding how it operates, as it's being put out into the world, in the atmosphere, even interviews on TV shows and stuff like that, we individuals are able to read individuals' behavior. Yes, we are. As in seeing certain things in which others can't see, even when some people sometimes try to play or whatever, like they're suffering. And yet sometimes no suffering is say involved. And yet it's all for show, for distraction, to direct the attention onto somebody else or something. You gotta understand that. That's a science in itself. Hold up. Yep. I wonder what the mother's secrets are pertaining to the half-truths. If we can know. I say I rest my case in that. Yes, I do. What is it? Because I call bull on the half-truth. And yet, no bulls are nowhere around here. No, they're not. But I had to call out one anyway. Yes, I'm saying. Because something is wrong. Like, why won't she just get on TV and say, you know what, these are what some of the half-truths are? Because if you already know that you're possibly being looked at in the beginning, from the beginning period, you would want to say something. Because, see, the reason why she came out and said half-truths in the first place is because she felt, in a sense, that she was being looked upon as being guilty. I think that sort of thing possibly frustrates her, because remember, she's the mother. And yet, and still to stand and correct that even on the TV screen, is to do just that. Go on somebody's TV show and state the rest of the truth. Yes, for a mother to appear less guilty is for her to say something more. Yes, it is. Because that's an answer back to the public on trying to find the missing child, even to answer back, to provide some type of answer to, in fact, make yourself look less guilty, and yet to not say nothing more is to look even the more guilty. Yes, it does. It's almost like a call out, as in it stands out and yet no calling card is involved. Yes. People is going to talk. When it comes to public scrutiny and people getting pissed, say, about people talking about their home life situation, the public looking in from afar at them, I'm saying people will talk, as in get the word out on your daughter. That's what they're supposed to do if she's missing. So they have the right almost to say anything, even if it paints you bad, to try to for them to solve, to figure out what happened. So if the mother doesn't want to be involved in that, as it gets in her nerves, what she should do is just keep her mouth closed. Say something to, what's the word? Say something to address the half truth of what it is. And then after you say that in a way to not make yourself look so guilty, then just go quiet if that's what you're trying to do. But she should have addressed that, and she still should. The half truth. Right. Because yeah, if she get carried away talking and if she guilty, that's gonna come out anyway. It has to. Because everything that's hidden always sooner or later comes to the light. That's how life operates. Ask God and ask any Christian. They'll tell you. They'll say what is done in the dark comes to the light. What was the point of her even really saying a half truth? You got to always back up a half truth with more information. I said, question, how did we get here in the first place, as in the public questioning and talking? I said, oh, remember, a young girl was taken. Asia Degree, wasn't she? How did we get here, the public in the first place, bringing all this public scrutiny to the family? How did we get here in the first place with all these questioning and talking, which would upset the parents? I said, oh, remember, a young girl was taken. Or so they say. Maybe she was or maybe she wasn't. I don't know. Somebody knows and yet they're not telling. The FBI even says she was taken. But see, nobody knows what happened because we don't know. That's why we're standing talking. That's the point and position on our end, is to stand and talk to try to figure out. That's why we're here. And that sort of thing will bring public scrutiny to you. It has to. I said that in the beginning. To have nothing else is to go on and to know that's all to be said. It is. The police, the FBI, the sheriff's office, all that, they probably know even more than we do, being the public, and yet are not telling. Considering all this, the parents and the questions. Oh, and the half-truths as well. That's all we have to go on. That is all we have to go on. That is completely all we have to go on. Man. If I said something was a half-truth, and I'm too close to home where something happened, then that's to almost say I had to play a part in it, as in a position, even in the movement. As in finding a way through the dark at night, being a parent, or brother, or possible even relative, close blood relative, immediate family somewhere in the atmosphere there. Because you just don't say because see, if you say something as a half-truth, that in a sense represent outlaw. It does, because it's almost telling on yourself. It is. Because they say to witness crimes being done as in happening is to play the role of accomplice. To say that something is a half-truth is almost making the world view you as if you were almost in on this, sort of in on that, or completely in on this situation. the parents. That's what that sort of thing will look like from the public side. That, oh, I know a half truth, and no, you guys are not saying it right. I know this, but I'm not going to say it. I'm just going to let you guys guess. That sort of thing, man, from afar, that's almost like, yes, witnessing a crime. That's almost like saying that mother or that father, brother witnessed a crime as it was at play. And that sort of thing, it does spell outlaw. Because remember, even in that, if you didn't commit the crime yourself, that spells accomplice. Yes, it does. Because to be involved in crime, which could have possibly involved murder, is to say that's a painted suspect as it is. It has to be. You can't be involved in that type of thing and say walk away. You in fact have to go to jail. Because if it plays out again with somebody else after that first individual went to jail and yet you're still walking the street, it's possible you to say that you might notice that thing going down, right? You might notice that thing going down with somebody else doing, and then you might not say. That put other people in harm's way. That's why police lock people up. So I said the role in the crime, even of accomplice, even in the realm of molestation, that's accomplice too. Because remember, damage is being done to a child if she's being molested in someone's household by one parent, and yet another parent knows and sees it and yet never says anything to police about that. You can consider that the role of accomplice as well. Because you're killing the child just as it's being done. You're not killing them physically. You're killing them emotionally as well as spiritually. Yes, you are. You're draining them dry in all aspects of where even no water is possibly involved in a sense. Because to molest, to lay up and molest someone, grown man or woman, molest a child, it's to know even some children can take their own lives later on in the future pertaining to that sort of thing. Children have in fact committed suicide for the simple fact their parents was laying there and they were being molested by that parent, and yet another parent in the environment or other adults in the environment knew that sort of thing was going on. Children are prone to suicide, even in that, because sometimes to not be able to escape that thing is to want to get away from it. And yet, how would you feel laying there late at night, somebody's coming in, intruding on your private space? I wouldn't want that sort of thing, and neither would I want that for other people's children, which is why I stood up and spoke about this very thing. Even molestation charges could revolve in that as well. Like they say, to commit a crime is to do the time and do it as long as possible. Possibly where there's no coming back, as in none being found, and hopefully Asia being found on the other side of all that. But if that sort of situation played out in her house, as in what I'm speaking on, then that sort of thing more likely won't happen in her being found. Look at how many years done has passed. Look at how many years has passed and this girl has yet to show up. See, the only time that somebody go missing like that is say if they're a teenager and they just want to walk away for good, which is why I said kids sometimes, teenagers, yes, teenagers almost semi-young adults, why some or even many of them could be prone to suicide and wanting to kill themselves, or even walking away from a home such as which is staying questionable of, say, physical abuse in the form of molestation. Teenagers do that sort of thing, and yet not young kids, not young babies. No, they don't. They have to have a helping hand, a willing hand in helping them out, as in the sea late at night, because to not have a flashlight is to never know what awaits, as in what stands on the other side of the door. And even young children know that. They know that the boogeyman could be in fact outside waiting you on the other side of the door because it's pitch black. And yet to not even be able to get away from him, as in running and leaving his arms, is to question young Asia, where did you go? That in itself is a mystery. Her case possibly more than likely will possibly never be solved, because despite all the evidence they're showing the police, I'm sure they know. The police has to. They have to know something despite it be going on this long. They have to know something, because even they tap telephone lines. They have to. That sort of thing can even possibly be done in warrants. I said that. But to never return home is to ask young Asia, where did you go? Where did you go? Why? That's basically it. That's basically it. That concludes. What happened to young Asia? That's sad. Her photographs, it's sad. It's one of the main reasons why when I make these little short videos, short, long, however you want to call them, that's why I place the photo on each video, as in stamp it, because it's sadness. All that spells, the whole thing just spells out, which is why I got A, B, C, D, E, because I didn't really want to number it. I didn't like how that looked, but to put letters in a sense, right? Because on the actual photo that I use, it has a envelope, like for letters and stuff like that. So to think creative, I put letters on each envelope, because to try to compile videos and questioning, right, is to help to tell the story, is to help to figure out. But not only that, it's to try to spell what could have possibly went down or something. To be very creative is to try to think creative and even solving. So I rest my case in even this, because it's too much. It's too much. It's very deep. And I hope and I pray, even myself, despite me really not being deep in the faith of religion, but I hope and pray that she's still alive. But the way a bag is buried like that, stuff like that is almost a mark of death that represents death itself. Because to bury something is to signify death. Look it up, Google it. But I'm guessing only time can tell, even after 18, crossing into almost 20 years on the way. So there's nothing else to be said. It's the end.